Hey everyone, it's Michael. I have another book review for you. This one is a new series that I have not started yet until now. I've read a couple of these stories before, and I'll get to that in a moment, but this particular book, out of this 6-book series from Goosebumps, is Tales to Give You Goosebumps, Special Edition number 1. 10 spooky stories. Now, by the way, this picture right here, which is absolutely terrifying, is actually Curly, before Curly became just a walking, talking skeleton. This book here is actually one of the 3 books that are collected in this big book that I've had since I was a child that my grandparents got me. I've always loved this book. That picture of Curly terrified me when I was a child. Never knew what it was or anything like that. But yeah, this was a great book. I'm so thankful I have this. It's one of my favorite things my grandparents ever gotten me. But Tales to Give You Goosebumps. Man, this was a really good book. It was a really fun book. Has some great stories in here. I think there's only, honestly, maybe one story out of the entire book that I didn't like that much. That's actually happening to be the last last story of the entire book. Again, this is a short story collection, not a novel like you get typically with Goosebumps, or novella, novelette, whatever. This is 10 individual stories that are about 10 to 15 pages long per each, and it was good. It was really good. I actually really enjoyed this. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. The first 3 or 4 stories I had read before when I had opened up the hardcover I just showed you, and I never did finish the book. I don't know why. I read like that first few stories and I never got past that with this book. I don't know why. I just didn't. I don't know. At one point in my life I wasn't a really big book reader, and then slowly I got more and more into it. I had a hiccup, but it sounded like a girly hiccup. Yeah. But Tales to Give You Goosebumps, I dug this a lot. I love the cover art. I love the orange and yellow color scheme. That's what I meant. The book has some great stories in here, and they're not just like kid fare, you know. I actually think a couple of these stories have some really good morals to them. Mainly, the first one, for example, I'll just kind of go through the different stories listed here. The first story in the book is a very good home run story that I liked a lot. It's called The House of No Return. Basically, there's a club of kids who kind of have like this little thing going on where they like dare other kids to go in this really creepy, supposedly haunted house in their town. And the main kids in that club that started that club have never went in the place because they don't have to prove, you know, and this is their cowardly way of putting this, they don't have to prove that they're actually brave and into danger and stuff. I love the kind of, not really message or anything, but I love the ending of that story. I think it was very clever. Teacher's Pet is okay. It's actually, a couple of kids get a new teacher when they start back at school, and this teacher has like an obsession with snakes. It was a pretty good story. Strained Peas was a really good one. Strained Peas is actually about a boy or a girl, I don't remember. It was somebody who had their mother just come home with a new baby sister. And that one got real wild. It's one of my favorites. It's actually one of the ones that I always remembered reading from this particular book, the hardcover I just showed you. That particular story, I think, is like the furthest I ever got in this actual book now that I think about it. But that one got to me when I read this back in the day. Strained Peas, it's pretty fun. It's almost like a comic book reference type thing, but not really. Not like a reference like to Marvel or DC or anything, but just the tone and the feel, and the main character's a comic book fan, you know, like there's a lot of stuff like that in there. I'm really surprised by it, and I really enjoyed that story even this time. Strained Peas is another one to look out for. Strangers in the Woods. I don't think I even remember that one that well. That was a good one, I think. Good Friends. I don't think I entirely remember that one either, actually. Man. I'm trying to get an idea for... I think that particular one... I don't know, it doesn't matter. I'm just talking about some of the ones that I love the most. The next story in here is How I Won My Bat, which was awesome. That story is actually based around baseball. The main character actually is having a hard time hitting a lot of home runs and stuff. He's supposed to be like the main big-time batter in their team. And everybody keeps telling him, including the coach, they basically threaten him, like, look, you better start getting better or you're off the team, essentially. And this random person comes up to him, a short fella, and gives him this bat and tells him he has to use this today. It's a very light bat, and that it'll help him out and stuff. He uses it, and he's supposed to bring it back immediately after the baseball game itself, or practice, or whatever it was. And he may or may not have done that. So it was a pretty cool morale tale. I actually really like the moral to that story too. The next one, Mr. Teddy, is one of my favorite stories. Oh, it was so good. Probably my second favorite in the entire book. Mr. Teddy is such a good story. It basically is about a girl who has collections, right? And this, of course, coming from somebody that has a Goosebumps collection and a lot of other things that I collect, like DVDs and movies and stuff. I can relate so well to the story, and it's heart-wrenching, the fact that this story is so much meant for people like myself. Essentially, this girl has a teddy bear collection and a porcelain egg collection. I think it was something else, like a doll collection or something, too. And essentially, she is so constantly focused on getting the next thing, like the next teddy bear, the next porcelain egg to add to the collection, that she doesn't appreciate what she actually has already. For example, she has an old teddy bear that she pretty much grew up with and loves to death, which I had something sort of like that. I had an actual lamb when I was a kid that I still love to this day. And she essentially puts this one on the shelf to have this new teddy bear that she recently got that has these really creepy eyes. But then things start happening around the house. It feels a lot like Not a Living Dummy, like a Slappy book from Goosebumps, but like in 10 or 12 pages. Very cool. Very cool. I love the moral. I think it's really solid, honestly. Very generic for people who love Not a Living Dummy. But at the same time, so good. So good. I love that message to that book. The next story is Click. That's pretty cool. About a remote control that this kid gets, his dad brings home, and it can possibly control reality around you. The ending to that story is pretty eerie. I'm not gonna lie. I really dug that. It had like this Richard Matheson feel to it. The guy who wrote like I Am Legend and Nightmare at 30,000 feet or 10,000 feet, whatever it was. Broken Dolls. Man, oh man. Broken Dolls. I read that today, like a little while ago. Broken Dolls was excellent. That might very well be my favorite story of the entire book. Essentially, a boy and a girl, they stumble across a doll collection, essentially, and the brother starts getting sick after they talk to this elderly woman who is the doll maker. There is some stuff in that story, some nightmare fuel type stuff, and I recommend this book alone just because of that. That story alone, Broken Dolls, is a really, really good one. That's going to take your breath away, man. The last story in here is the one that I don't love that much. I think it's kind of a bad story, honestly. It's called A Vampire in the Neighborhood. It's not very good. It is what it is. Basically, a bunch of kids are trying to figure out if this one really creepy, weird goth kid is a vampire. And they kind of just spy on her, and that's like the whole story, you know, and then the finale has this twist that just is stupid. And pretty much all these stories, in the vein of being a Goosebumps R.L. Stine written story, they have a twist at pretty much every single end of the stories, and that's always pretty cool. Again, Broken Dolls, that's a great one. I really enjoyed Tales to Give You Goosebumps. I don't know why these are called Special Edition number 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, 6, you know, out of the 6 books. I don't know why they're called that. They're not really special editions per se, but I guess it's kind of like nowadays we have the longer books that are special editions of like Most Wanted. I don't know. But this was really good. I really dug this. I'm really thankful I got to finally read this. I want to read some of the other books. I know that some of the books are based around, like, I think the third book is a summertime read, I believe. It looks like it from the cover. I know for sure the final book is actually a Christmas book, so I want to read all of these before Christmas time to try to at least have that one book to talk about. And there's also one of them that I think is like the fourth book that's based around Halloween, so hopefully I'll be able to read that, God willing, around October or September. I think I'm going to start the Halloween books in September. I think so, because there's a lot of them, you know. It'd be easier to use them in those 2 months rather than trying to bomb through everything at one time, because there's certain books like Weirdo Halloween that are pretty long. But anyway, Tales to Give You Goosebumps, really solid book. I really dug this. It's really good, has some great stories in here. Again, there's only a couple that are kind of misses for the most part, but if I had to rate this on a 5-star basis, I'd easily give it like a very high 4 out of 5 stars. Very good book. Again, cover art. This is so eerie. I love this picture. The little house on the cliff and everything. It reminds me of The House on Haunted Hill, the old Vincent Price film that I love so much. Really good book. I recommend this a lot. If you can get your hands on the hardcover, if you haven't already be a fan of this series, I'd recommend getting the hardcover too. This is really cool. Kind of hard to come by now, honestly. I love this. Very thankful. One of my favorite books that I own in the collection. But anyway, guys, what are your thoughts on Tales to Give You Goosebumps? Put your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. Excuse me, hiccups again. What are your thoughts on some of the stories? Don't put too many spoilers down there. If you do, please label it as a spoiler thing so people aren't ruined. But I do recommend the book, even if you're not a short story person. I'm not really a big short story person. That's what I write, for my own work that I'm working on right now. I love my type of short stories, like the kind of stuff like Alvin Schwartz, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I love stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff I enjoy to write. And yet, Goosebumps, I didn't know how good short stories could get, and they did pretty well. R.L. Stine did a pretty good job here. But anyway, 4 out of 5 stars, guys. What do you think? Put your thoughts and comments down below. I'd love to hear what you say about my review, or about the book itself, or about Goosebumps overall, or about Tales to Give You Goosebumps as a series. I'd love to hear everything. Thank you for watching. May the Lord Jesus Christ bless you guys today, and goodbye.